one. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this exclusive live webinar with my friend and this badass producer, Pablo Valda. He goes by the name of Chalto. He is a Bolivian-born, Latin Grammy-nominated, LA-based music producer and songwriter known for blending rock attitude with pop sensibilities and creating a unique sonic bridge between Latin and Asian pop. After leaving a career in investment banking, Chalto pursued his true passion for music, working alongside legendary producers and engineers like Jack Douglas, Jim Gallagher, Jason Evigan, Mitch Allan, and Tat Tong. His versatile work expands genres and artists such as Ace Frehley, Cheap Trick, Danna Paola, Luis Fonsi, Shinee, Wang LeeHom, JJ, Lin, Jasmine Yen, Cristian Castro, Antonio Jose, Luciano Pereyra, and Aitana. It's the one, the only, my friend and mentor, Pablo, aka Chalto. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Thanks for having me. You know that I think it was about time that we our deep conversations get shared with the world, so everybody
Yeah.
enjoys like we do. So thanks for having me, and it's a pleasure.
Yes, I agree. If you guys don't know, we've been working on music for forever, probably. It's been a long time. We met at a songwriting convention, and it was a while ago, and it's been a pleasure. It's been amazing. I enjoy working with him so much because he is so freaking talented, and he knows exactly what a song needs. And I'm so excited to be sharing this with you guys too, and to take a quick peek behind scenes. What does a producer do? How to produce some music. We're gonna share with you guys just quickly how to produce a song on the spot, just like here, because he's so generous and so awesome that he's gonna show us. So we're very excited. Welcome everybody. I know we also have some people from Costa Rica. Bienvenidos,
Pura vida.
bienvenidas. Lots of lots of incredible female producers in the house. Salty, how's it going? Welcome. Thank you for being here. You're so awesome. And all the people that are connected right now and the ones that are going to be watching the replay too. Thank you so much for being here. So without further ado, we're going to begin this cool conversation. If you guys have questions, just put it in the chat and then we can probably get to those at the end. And if not, welcome. And I hope that you get to learn something new and different. I know my channel is mainly focused on singing, but I've been wanting to bring you guys something new, something that is also related to singing, recording yourself. But in a different way. So I'm very excited about this. All right. So we're going to start with the first question. And let's start from the beginning. Did you always wanted to be a music producer? Was that a thing growing up?
Well, no, but I was always very inclined to music. I was very attracted to music. Like my first memories are always with the radio, like in the car or watching the TV, like a music video and everything. And my mom always says that I was always like dancing to the TV. So I don't know. But then, of course, my grandfather plays the guitar. So when we visited him, he was always singing, and I was always attracted to the guitar. And I really loved how out of nothing, like a great moment could like appear thanks to music. Like my grandfather would like get the guitar and start playing, and everybody would like join in. And it was a very communal thing that I never really found anywhere else. And I've tried like a bunch of hobbies. Like growing up, my parents were like, "Hey, you have to do stuff, so you have to do hobbies." And I did like jazz dancing, I did like tennis, I did like swimming lessons. And the only one that really stuck because I felt like a personal connection was music. And inevitably, the late 90s, I started playing in bands, playing in punk pop bands. And that's when I really started to become like the music guy in my class, and everything was music. I had this obsession with like listening to a bunch of stuff, because back then it was cool to you were a metal guy, or like you didn't like pop and pop was trash. But I always had this like attraction to like pop stuff, like melodies that really resonate with me. Like my favorite like metal bands know how to write a pop song and like produce it as metal or stuff like that. But I never really understood what production was until I went to college and I found myself with no band. So I had that need to express myself with music. And since I didn't have a band, I had to figure out what to do. And it was around the time where like I think GarageBand came included on every MacBook you bought. So that was a great jumping start because you had like a bunch of instruments just at your fingertips. And it gave me a palette that I never thought I could have by myself, like, hey, I want to recreate this Phil Collins horn line. You have horns. Hey, I want to do this. You didn't need to like try to learn how to play the horns or find someone that plays the horns. And that kind of like created an explosion of creativity in my mind. And I started like writing songs like crazy. When I graduated, I went back home. I started working in investment finance, and it was night and day of the emotion that I had like when I was writing songs and doing my own stuff. And it was not good, but it was in my mind. I was writing a record that it was amazing because I was like taking all those elements from my favorite artists and making something new. And that creation was that it was kind of like an addiction, because you create something new. And my banking work was the exact opposite. I was a market analyst that I had to look at numbers, do charts, and say, hey, the charts are going here, the charts are going there, but they could maybe not. So I don't know. So I decided to leave that behind. I moved to Philadelphia and started studying audio production, which was not musically focused. It was like more wide. So like music for videos, music for video games was like a big thing that at that time was like a boom. And I graduated, and in my mind, I wanted to be a mixing engineer because I thought that was cool at the time. But one thing led to another. I moved to LA and I started interning with a bunch of songwriter producers. And that's when I started to actually see that all my obsession when I was young with music and all this instrument and that started to make sense to me because all of that is like colors that you can use to paint a picture that a lot of people that are very like this is my genre and this is what I do miss out a bunch because there are stuff like for you to be like in a genre there are like some rules that somebody invented, and if you don't look past that like you're missing out in a lot of great art, and music is something that I really feel that goes beyond like rules and anything, is one of the most human things that we can do, like it's really amazing. So then I started to learning from producers and interning around LA, and one thing leads to the other, and then you start like getting like better gigs, and sometimes you get like to collab with people that you're actually working for, and then you go from intern to you're the assistant, and all of a sudden you're like a partner, and then like they move on, and then it's your turn to do your own thing. But it was always about music, like what with music. I didn't know, because I wanted to be a drummer when I was very young. Then I started playing guitar, which is what I play the most. And it, it's kind of like a wave that takes you. And the more you let the wave take you, the farther you will get. And I believe that 100%.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Well,
It is definitely a journey for sure. I mean, from
I
banking to here.
no, right. And you've been like the same thing because I know that you went and studied in Italy and you had like a different idea of what you wanted to do with life. But like music is like this thing that if you fall in love with it when you're young, I think there's no escaping to it, Like I hear people say like, "Oh yeah, I listen to music," but and I'm like, "Oh, what's your favorite kind?" "Oh no, I listen to everything and not really." And I'm like, "Oh, you don't get you don't have that thing that
Mm-hmm.
lovers have. It's kind of like a drug, like I said, that it's an addiction that it pulls you back in. And even like sometimes life is harder, like making music, but for some reason we prefer it, right? Like it's
Yeah, yeah.
worth it to suffer more because you love it so much.
That's a poetic way of putting it. Yes. If I'm completely new at producing, um, what is like some of the basic gear that I need to record? Like if I want to do a demo and I just want to do like I don't know, vocals and guitar or vocals and piano, like what do you need for that?
Okay, so the good thing is that nowadays, like things are getting easier to get, and you have DAWs, like virtual workstations in iPhones, in iPads, like
So
any laptop.
for those who don't know what a DAW is a digital audio workstation, and it's basically the program that you use to record in. And you're gonna see his DAW very soon. But yeah, continue.
Yeah. So the difference between like a DAW and just recording like a voice note or anything is that you have the capability of mainly multi-track. So you can record on top of what you recorded before and keep them separately. So you can start building like harmonies or different guitars, or in one track you have drums, in another track you have bass and stuff like that. So now you can do that on anything. Just like 20 years ago, like having a studio to record more than 4 tracks was extremely expensive. Now, the only thing that you need is like I said, like either a laptop, an iPhone, um, or an iPad. And then the three things that I think are the first and most important is an audio interface, which is a box that will take your analog audio, like when you talk or you play, and is gonna turning it into ones and zeros. It's going to digitize it, and that's going into your computer or your iPad, etc. And it's also taking that information that's digital and turning it into analog for your headphones or your speakers. Which brings me to the second, like good set of speakers. Uh, you need to hear what you are recording as well as possible so that you don't have a problem of translation in the middle, that you think everything is great and we play it back sounds different. That is extremely frustrating, and that's one of the things that would kill your creativity very fast. So you need to have a good set of monitoring, which like speakers, but speakers are usually more expensive, and you need like a good room and everything. So like a good set of headphones are like a must. And then your input to your system will be a microphone. And any decent microphone today is acceptable, and it's enough to make a record that like would be like on a record label. It's famously YouTube Bono uses an SM58 handheld. So if he can make like amazing records with a 58, like anybody can. And then when you start to get more into it, you can start like getting more exquisite, what I call, like stuff that you don't really need, but makes it better, like a better interface, more inputs to the interface because maybe you have synthesizers or stuff that's already plugged in, and you can start building. But you need an interface. The good news is that like any reputable brand interface is really good, and they are like really, really affordable now. The same as microphones. The SM58, I think is $90. And anybody has like an iPad or a phone or a laptop. And today, processing power is so good that you don't even need like a really good computer. You just need whatever you have, and you can start making demos, records, anything you want.
Amazing. I actually found something that I want to share with everybody. This is basically what he was talking about. This is like super basic. Like this is if you have never touched a computer um and if you are doing that, like this is what you need. Like just, some headphones. This is the SM58 that he was talking about, and this is the audio interface. Of course, if you want to keep producing and if you want to keep growing, you're going to be changing this, but this is kind of like the basic, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, with that you can already make like awesome stuff.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, so let's keep going. Can you show us how to record like a basic track and what does it entail? We want to see, like you told us, okay, in one track I record some drums, and in the other track I record some whatever. You can show us what a music producer normally does.
All right. Well, this is not what a music producer normally does, is what I do because everybody's different, like approaches are completely different, but this is kind of how I get going. Let me share. All right.
And
Okay.
this is your DAW, your digital audio workstation, and it's called Studio One, right?
Yeah, this is a Studio One. This is what I see like every day that I open the studio. Uh, this is my template. This is something that I've created, accumulating like stuff that I like, that I don't like, and stuff that I found that I need immediately to start painting a picture. Because when you work with collaborators or artists, you have to be as quick as possible. So this is my starting point. As let me show you. I have a folder when I have drums. Here I have a bunch of empty tracks. Here I already have an instrument that is like a drum set. So if anybody comes in and they grab the bass or a guitar and they want to start something, I already have this. This is Addictive Drums is great because all the sounds are already kind of pre-mixed. They sound like mixed drums, and you have a bunch of different sounds. So I would usually go there and find something or a loop, splice, or here I have like a bunch of samplers where I can do like individual samples. Here I have a kick that's always loaded because it's quicker to double click here and start doing. Usually what you do is the root is C1. You do like, you know, you can get going something like if somebody wants to start like improvising something and they need like a kick's already there. Then I have bass, which is like I have another folder with the bass. I have two instruments for bass, which is something that I found that I always use. This is usually a sub. I don't know if you guys even hear it, but it's like super low.
Yep, we can hear it. Well, I
And,
can hear.
and then this is more like an attack.
So can
Or
you explain us the difference between that, the attack and the sub bass?
okay, so yeah, the bass is one of the instruments that's very complicated when it comes to mixing because you have two things going on. You want the bass to feel full and round in the bottom, when your car starts like rattling when you have like too much bass, but you also want to hear the notes. And it's very complicated to get that at the same time. So usually what you do is like you split it, like so you assign the low end, the body to one sound, and then you have the definition of the notes on another. This was usually done back in the day when you would like mic a bass amp and also take a DI. So you would mix those two. Usually the amp would be a bit distorted because it was an amp, and the DI would be clean, and that would be like the low end.
The DI means direct input. So that's when you plug in your bass directly, right? To the
Yes.
interface.
Yes, like nowadays interfaces have a DI input, but before there was this thing called a DI box. And the cool thing about the DI box is that uh, it does what it has to do to get your sound into the console, but also gives you a through line that you can plug into your amp. So you would have split into two, one to the amp and one to the console, and then you would mix those two. So it's kind of like doing that, but with different sounds. And sometimes you want like a constant low end, like a rumble, woo, and then like a something like this, like doing the riff, you know. And here I have like a bunch of sounds that I can use, but this is usually the one that I start with because it's very definite. Then I have guitars. In guitars, I have a bunch of open channels. I always have one ready to go, like that one. So I can grab my guitar, unmute it here, and I have a guitar going in. Right now, you're not hearing it. And I have that ready there to go. And then same thing with keys. I have like some instruments that I know that can help me, like an electric piano. And I don't know what this is. I think this is like the Avenger, like the default, which is kind of like a sawtooth, I think. Yeah. So my objective is to come here and I don't have to look for anything. Like I don't have to go to menus or if I need this, like I can go to the track that I need to and start recording. Um, and usually what I do is I'll show you kind of what I do right now. Let's go to the kit. I like this indie. Right, that's very neutral. Like it doesn't have too much attitude, which is good because you can put anything on top. We drag it here, and now look at my drum. Perfect. Now what I would do is get my guitar and start playing a little bit. Where's my pick? They can see. All right. I'll bring my microphone here so you can hear it because otherwise it's gonna be crazy. Okay, and you just and I don't like it.
We cannot hear when you're tracking.
Yeah, yeah. The problem is that if I do it, there's a lot of latency, and I won't be able to play in time.
Oh, got it. Okay, we'll hear it. We'll hear it when you finish.
So let's hear what I got. Sometimes it really quickly, so I don't sound out of time. Now let's go. I would get some bass here. Where are the notes? Let's do something kind of 80-ish. D. Then you have something kind of this quantizing is bad, so let's undo it. Where's bit markers? And then what we can do is let's use the low end to make it. now the elements that we have is like this drum set. We have a low end. Low, bring it up an octave. Okay, and then what we can do is let's use a kick. So repeat it all over. There you go. Like something like this could be the intro, you know?
Sure.
And then because you have that kick, you can do this, which is this is a sidechain compressor that I have typed.
So this we get more into mixing, which is basically to grab what you already recorded and kind of make it sound more pretty, right? More like taking away the sound that you don't need on the low and high end, right?
Yeah, but this is part of the production because you're gonna hear that the bass is gonna sound different. It's gonna be part of the. So I'll show you iPad. In you hear the bass without it. And like I told you guys, like this is my template. Like this kick is already linked to that compressor because I know that I'm going to be doing this a lot and I always do it, and it's not hard, but you have to bring the compressor here, you have to find the side chain and all. So it's already done in my template. So like every time I open it, it's already loaded. Then on top of that, I would like start no, you know what? Let me get a funky shaker. So like right now, the beat's kind of like too square. So let me find a funky shaker. Funky, yeah, let's try this one. See, it's already like moving forward. Then here we would let me try to do something similar of what we are doing in the bass, which is a bumper. You can hear it, like this is without it. This is with the pump. So make it extra cool. You can add some distortion, capitator. Oh, Delta. Record more guitar. Another pad. replace this one. I don't like it. And now I would start like looping it and just playing stuff in my guitar, like melodies, and that will bring up some stuff to paint later. So let me show you. That's kind of cool. Let me show you because I know that you guys can't hear it. Something like. Like that, and then keep going. And one thing that I do is like I do like another pass for another melody, and that could either be like a counter melody, or what usually happens is that that's for another part. So let me show you that. There. Show that. That would be something like. This sounds more like a counter melody more than anything else. Or you can do the smart thing and just use the first one. It could be like a chorus. The second one can be like a post-chorus. Let me fix this. It's killing me.
I'm already like humming some melodies here. Hum, hum, hum.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
well, let me try to see if. There you go. Or you can go in and finesse it or replay it until you like it. And what I usually do is like I do this a lot, like a lot of passes in whatever comes to mind. I just play it because uh like 5 years ago I started like making not 5 years ago, like 7 years ago, I started like making a mistake of trying to not play guitar because back then, like nobody wanted guitars in anything. So like every guitar that I put like on a track, the feedback would be like, oh, it sounds great, but like bring the guitars down. So I started like playing keys and starting to like draw melodies, with the mouse. And I lost all like that magic that comes from music. It got lost. I was thinking a lot of what I was doing in my music was very square and I didn't like it. So now what I do is I set up like a groove, like I showed you guys, like a bass, a drum, and some chords. And then I just start like jamming with myself. And I put it on loop and I just play something, whatever it comes, and then I go through it because a lot of the stuff like melodies for choruses, for counter melodies, maybe a riff, can be found there like little like things that you can put like around your track that it doesn't even have to repeat ever, like one little cool lick. And if you don't like guitars, you can like take those notes that came from your heart through the guitar, like in my case, because I'm a guitar player, and then replace that with any sound that you want. Like, like you can do anything you want. But my idea and what's like bringing me a lot of like happiness, like while producing is this, because before I felt like had to like think too much about it. And sometimes when you think stuff, the result is very obvious and everybody does obvious and you have to go the extra mile to be unique. But if you're just yourself, like you're going to be unique. You just have to get good.
Amazing. Yes. And this is usually the time where after you are done with like your ideas and stuff, you send it to like a singer like me. And so then we collaborate and that, that's another way of collaboration that you guys can see. Like if you're working with a producer or if you're producing your own thing, you can also send it to somebody else and then they'll be like, uh I don't know, humming a melody, and this just inspired me like something like that. And I feel like if you put that on top of everything, then you got a song, and it's like really fun because then I think two heads are better than one for sure. And it's also more fun because then you don't get stuck in your own ways. Um, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, and it's easier because like sometimes you question yourself, or what happens to me like a bunch of times is like when I'm working on a track, I hear something that reminds me of a song that I know from 20 years ago. I'm like, oh, I'm copying that song. I'm copying that song. Oh, I'm copying that song. When you send it to someone else that doesn't ever heard that song, like they don't hear that, and they're gonna do something on top that's gonna be so different that all your worries that, oh, am I really like copying that song are out the window. So like always like try to collaborate. That's one of the things that I've learned like a lot.
Totally. I agree with you. Okay, thank you so much. This was so cool. So when collaborating, we're gonna move on to the next one. When collaborating with artists, what are some key things a producer needs to do in a producing slash songwriting session?
All right. So, the responsibility that falls on the producer in the session is like very crucial, and it's very important for you to be aware and be very vigilant in like certain fronts, because even if you're not the one who's like officially running the session, like maybe there's like an A&R person like in the session, or maybe the artist is like who's actually running the session, but you as the guy who's or girl that's less like making the track, and that you're like producing the session. First of all, you need to be uh like good at making the track. You have to be able to first of all make a track that can like inspire people to be creative, and also you have to be aware of not uh like messing with the creativity when you're on producer mode. That's one of the things that I've seen that I hate. Just get the track to the point where like everybody can vibe and that's enough, but like nobody really wants to be hearing the producer go through snare samples 20 minutes, like you can do that like on your own time. Like you have to know how to get to that point very quickly, because you don't want to be the bottleneck in the creativity, because that's going to make people not want to work with you, and that generates like a snowball that sometimes is very difficult to get out of. uh, my advice for that is always do your homework and prepare. One of the things that I always do when I don't feel comfortable with a session that's coming, maybe it's a new artist, maybe it's a genre that I don't know too much, or maybe always communication is the best thing that you can do. Talk to whoever set up the session, A&R or the manager. Ask them if they have like a reference playlist of what they're looking for, what type of music they want. Hey, w what is she or he into? Like all of that information will give you ammunition that will make you start from a higher place, not from zero. And what I do and what I always recommend people doing is like 2 days before the session, go into the studio and try to like flesh out a couple of tracks that fall into that like that brief that they they're giving you. It doesn't have to be exact because you also want to be yourself, but something that falls into those like parameters and have them in your back pocket. That way, the day of the session, if everything goes wrong, you still have like two tracks that are right there that can save the day. Because as a producer, also like your whole responsibility is to end up the day, like end the day with a song, and you have to do your best to achieve that, because there's nothing worse than being in a room with four other people for 8 hours and coming out like with nothing. That's like the worst thing, because everybody hates like each other, like it's warm, and so like make sure you can do that. And even if they don't like your tracks, like you already have a session with, you've already heard the sounds, you've already picked the samples that are kind of in that style, you already have the synths and everything. So if they don't like the harmonic content, you can delete it and play new chords, but the sounds are already there, the homework's already done. If they don't like the drums, delete the drums and do new drums, but everything else is already done. And that will liberate you to actually be a better songwriter, because you're not like obsessing over producing when you don't have to. You can do that on your own time when everybody leaves. Which brings me to the second point, which is like you have to be technically not a problem, because you're going to be recording singers, you're going to be recording artists, you're going to be comping, you're going to be um I don't know. One of the things that people don't really understand how tense and hard is, like punch-ins. You have to be very good at punch-ins, because with a if you flop one, you can ruin a great take. And if it's your friend, there's no problem. But sometimes you're with like A-list artists that won't take that like lightly. So you have to do that. And again, for that, oh, also like have everything like my template, like make your studio ready to go with like a couple of clicks, like everything plugged in. There's like an old school like thought of like taking your microphones into your mic closet. That's like commercial studio thinking, like now you need to have everything, has to be a turnkey, like everything ready to go. Um, have like, if you have I don't know, and again, it's like do your homework, like prepare, like try to have sessions with your friends, do covers when nothing really matters, and see what goes wrong. See what are the points where you're like, oh, we were looking for this stupid cable for half an hour, so now you buy 10 of those cables, and you have them right here. uh if you find that your microphone sounds great with a chain that sounds amazing, save that chain, or even like keep it in your template, because Melly knows like singers hate it when they sing and you play back and it doesn't sound well, you know?
No, we hate it.
It
We
has
want
to
to make
sound
sure
like a
that
rough.
we sound amazing.
Yeah. So you need to like you can't tell them, oh, when you get the mix next week is gonna sound amazing. Like it might be true, but like they're not gonna want to work with you again, and that's the problem. So you need to be really ready for those moments. And Melly knows how I learned this. Like I've worked with a lot of people that were like very, very, very demanding, and it's hard. Like you start sweating, you don't know what to do, but that's how you learn. And that's why I'm telling you guys to do this with your friends so that you don't get yelled at. Like do it with your friends, record a 4-song EP with covers that you like, and go through it and see what works, what doesn't work, when it doesn't matter, when your career is not on the line. And that brings me to the third and most like critical thing that a lot of people look over, is like the human side. You have to remember that you're working with humans. You have to remember that, especially humans that work with music are usually very sensitive and very sensible to different stuff. And you have to be actively aware of that. You have to be actively aware that you're dealing with humans, that at any moment anything can go wrong. Anybody can write a song in their bedroom with a guitar by themselves, but that's not the magic of getting in a room and writing a song where four or three different backgrounds and different experiences come together for a topic. And that to me is amazing. When that works well, it's magic. When it doesn't, it's a disaster, because so many emotions are involved that a bad experience can ruin a relationship, like a working relationship for you forever. So, first of all, you cannot take criticism personally, and you cannot get offended, because you might be working on a beautiful riff for 20 minutes while people are like doing stuff, and they turn around and say like, no, we don't like that. You might think that is the best riff ever, but you cannot let that one offend you and two like bring you down or like, oh, okay, whatever, okay, doesn't matter. You delete it, forget. You start talking. See, if somebody said like something, hey, it would be cool that instead of that riff, you would do some guitar like this, and says somebody says like a word or like a song that you've never heard of, whatever. You say, okay, cool. You go to the bathroom, get your phone, like, oh, this is what, come back, start working on that. Try to be like invisible. Also, you need to learn how to give criticism because sometimes people are not gonna be working or at the standard that you want or like or where like or the direction that you want, and you have to be able to convey that in a way that is not offending, that's constructive, and sometimes even if it sounds like a manipulation, but maybe make them think that what you're trying to do is their idea in the best way that you can. Anything, like, don't try to take credit. Your credit is that at the end of the day there's an amazing song done, and you have to do anything for that to to work. And also, you have to be very vigilant of how you make people feel, because if you make people feel very good at the session, they feel amazing, they always will want to work with you, regardless of your talent, regardless of your hits, regardless of how many of your songs are actually hits or whatever, because they feel great. And when people feel great, they do great art and music. And for instance, I go back to like always do your homework. If you have a session with a new producer or a new artist that you don't know, let's say she or he's from Finland, the day of the session, like go to Wikipedia, like read a little bit of Finland, like take some talking points. When your collaborator gets to the studio, start talking, you start like asking about that, and you'll see how everything will become familiar and friendly. And when you create in like a friendly place is completely different as going to a studio that's been hired and you go in, and that will generate also lasting working relationships that go beyond like one session. Just take care, prepare for your sessions, and you'll be fine. But you have to prepare until you're 100% comfortable going cold, and you will get to that place. There are some
Sure.
genres that I'm okay like coming here with nothing. And there are some that instead of saying no to the session because I don't know anything about that, I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll do my homework and do your best. And that's the best you can do as a producer.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that advice. Love it. I'm gonna skip a few here. I'll go for a producer is known for its sound. So like Max Martin, he did Britney and Backstreet Boys back in the 90s. Mark Ronson did Amy Winehouse, etc. What do you think makes a producer sound like unique?
There are a lot of things that come into play for that. I think I think that expressing yourself with music is kind of like language, like talking. Um, and I don't think we like, especially our first language, like we don't actively learn the language. We just hear it and then we start like imitating, and whatever comes out, it starts coming out, and that's how we learn how to talk. I think music is the same thing because your influences come from way before you start to liking bands and your favorite bands. Is the, like I said before, like the music that your mom played on the radio when you were 3, or whatever was like super popular in your town when you were a kid. And all of those experiences are completely unique to people, just like accents. Like people start getting accents because people around you talk a certain way, and everything starts like affecting you. And you have all those influences that come from that, from like music that you loved when you were like a teenager. That's usually where most of your influences come. And then you have stuff that you really admire, that you like from an artistic point of view admire and kind of like feel inspired by. And all of that becomes your musical lexicon, like all of your sensibilities and what you think is cool, what you think is not cool, what makes you feel good, what doesn't make you feel good. Um, and then you want to try to imitate or emulate your idols. And usually it's not just one idol, it's like 10 idols, and you want to take the best of each one and generate this ideal producer that you think you should be. So all of those ingredients are completely different for everybody. And then on top of that, you need to filter that through the aesthetics of the moment because the punk pop revival now sounds completely different as early 2000s punk pop, you know. The idea is the same, but the sound itself is different. And like it or not, you're always gonna have a sound. Even if you try to emulate something, you'll end up sounding like yourself trying to emulate somebody because of all those intrinsic sensibilities that we have. And you know, that's why when you have like a catalog like 10 songs, even if you don't hear your sound, like people will hear your sound just like an accent. People are like, "Oh yeah." And then you start like realizing, "Oh yeah, I do that a lot. Oh yeah, I really like my bass to sound like this for some reason. Oh yeah, I always have like a really crazy second verse for some reason. I go somewhere else." And all of that starts to become to your signature. And I think it's like very like you have no control of it. You know, it's just like an accent. You just absorb from everything and you express with that lexicon that you've accumulated throughout all your life.
Sure, sure. I feel like the more you do it, the easier it gets, and also the more you're familiar with the sound that you're, bringing to the world. And of course, it just takes tons of hours of playing with sounds and of playing with, I don't know, different plugins, which you did with the drums, stuff like that. That sounds good to you, and then you start putting that in several songs, and so it just creates kind of like that signature sound that you like, right?
You always have like a favorite kick. You always have this shaker, and you end up like sounding like yourself.
Sweet. Okay, awesome. So for us creatives, there's always that imposter syndrome, that voice that tells you like you're not good enough or you don't deserve at all to be in that room with that artist. Like when you collaborated with like Luis Fonsi or Aitana or Danna Paola, which are huge artists. And so I want you to tell me like what do you think of that voice and how can we kind of like believe that we belong to that room?
All right. So the problem is that imposter syndrome is inevitable. So it's always going to be there. The good news is that the only way that you can like work against it is if you change the way you look at it, your perspective. Let's say in my world, imposter syndrome is when I'm in a room with like four songwriters or producers that I think, wow, like I'm so not at their level. They're like so much like here and I'm here. And you start to feel inadequate. You start to feel insecure. You start to feel like nervous and you're like, you don't know what to do. And you have this fear that they're gonna like realize that, oh, what is this dude doing here? Like, get out. But like, if you're in a room with four people that are vastly more talented than you, that's a good thing. That's a great thing. You know, you should be doing that every day. Like every day, you should be the least talented person in the room. That's the only way that you can grow. That's the only way that you can challenge yourself. Uh, you need to have this clear. It seems like a dichotomy, but it's like this duality of you need to have a very raw self-awareness of where you are and say like, yeah, I'm not at your level right now. You know, it's clear. I know that 100% I'm not. But you need to have that belief and faith that you could get to that level, that it's within your reach to get to that level. And the only way to bridge that gap is like by learning from those people, the more talented than you. So the next time you feel like you're an imposter, say like, yes, I'm here, you know, but I'm gonna learn from them and I'm gonna like level up. It's kind of like a video game, you know, like the first time you go to the boss, it's super hard and you can't beat it, you can't, but then you go back and grind, you come back and you beat it, and then you go and find a even harder boss, and then you beat that and that and that. So you need to have that in mind that it's never going to go away. You're always going to feel that if you're doing what you're supposed to do in your career, which is like getting to work with better people and not better people, more talented people, people that have more experience, people that have, that have been doing this for years and have like a track record that's, remarkable. You only learn that by putting yourself in that uncomfortable situation of being, let's say, like the little guy in the room. And also, another thing is that you have to remember that you did not like just barge your way into the room. Like somebody's letting you be in the room or somebody invited you to be in the room. And that means that somebody is like seeing something in you that's promising that maybe you're not seeing yourself because you're obsessed in something else. So also as gratitude to that person to have faith in you, you have to go do your best. You're gonna have terrible sessions, like it's gonna be stressful, but I promise you that the fifth, sixth session in that level, you're gonna feel all right, and then you're gonna see that you're gonna find yourself in another room where everybody's on another level, and then you're gonna be like, well, let's start again, and you keep going and going. That's the only way to like fight imposter syndrome, because like I said, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you're always gonna be like facing it, and there's no way to escape it.
Yes. I feel that way every time I'm in a room with people collaborating and it never goes away, but at least like you said, oh, she's super good at doing these melodies. Oh, I'm learning so much just by being here, you know. Something like that and I feel yeah, I love that. Great job. So what has been the greatest advice you've been given in your career?
Ooh, I've been giving a lot of advice. I've been very, very fortunate to meet a lot of very giving people with advice and knowledge and everything. The last one was Rob Grimaldi told me always finish your stuff. And that means especially for producers, we like to have a lot of ideas and a lot of sessions that are like 8 bar loops or like whatever that's oh this is super cool and then you move on and then you move on and then you move on and you move. And that's a waste of hard drive, that's a waste of time because you can be jamming with yourself for 3 days and then never use that. So always finish your stuff to a point where you can show people because when you put your music out there is when magic happens. So you always have to, even if it's like an acoustic demo, you and your voice, but make it sound good. Like make it, okay, this is an acoustic version of whatever, but it sounds good and you have it done. So you can start like sending it to people. Like what I do now is like even if it's just an instrumental, I try to flesh it out like an arrangement, like an intro, a verse. Okay, this is the chorus, this is a bridge, something different, and then I bounce it, and then I have it there with a little description, like, oh, this is like punk, the BPM and the key, like major key or whatever. And if you've given me like texts like Sunday night, like, hey, there's a brief for tomorrow at 8, we need this. Like, it's impossible for you to go to the studio and do that live. But if you have like a stupid song that you recorded like 3 years ago and it's there, you can send it and it might not be exactly what they want. It might be not exactly what they need, but sometimes you land those gigs, right? Like sometimes stuff happens. So if you always force yourself to put that 10 or 20% extra time and effort to flesh it out, not super produce it, not make it sound like a record, just instead of a 4 bar loop, like make it into a little song with some changes, some dynamics, so that people can kind of understand what's going on. And like Melly said, like maybe I can send that to her and she can like write an amazing top line on it, and then we have something going for instead of like being like a 4 or 8 bar loop on my hard drive. And the best thing that I've learned to do this, like how to do this, like every day that you work on your DAW, on anything on music, at the end of that session, whatever is the day, or bounce what you've done. Like bounce one bounce of everything that you've done. It doesn't matter where, like the state of it. So that later you can go back and press space bar and listen to what it is instead of having to open the session, wait for it to load all your plugins, and then like, oh, it was nothing. It was just a drum loop. So always like bounce it and keep it there in your folder so that you can always go back. And if Melly like gives me a text like, hey, we need like reggaeton for tomorrow, I can go back and listen. Like, was this a reggaeton? Yeah, this is a reggaeton. Oh, if I put like half an hour on this, I can send it to Melly and it could be like just so finish your stuff. Always finish your stuff. Don't let it like in the middle because that doesn't do well for anybody. It's just waste of time, waste of space. And somebody could make something super cool with your garbage. Just make it,
Totally.
send it out. Yeah.
Totally. I totally agree with you, especially we collaborate a lot for TV and film. That's what sync is. And that's what he was saying. Briefs. Briefs are just like description of a type of work that they need for this specific TV show and stuff like that. And I do agree. That's a great advice to convert all those instruments and all those ideas into an MP3 or into a WAV file. That is what bouncing means. And basically just have it there so you can listen to it back. So awesome advice. I never do that, so I'm gonna try that now.
Even
Thanks.
even I don't do it all the time, and I'm like, oh, I open a
Yeah,
session and it takes like half a minute, and then
yeah.
it's like two stupid things. I'm like, oh,
Yeah. That's a good advice. Okay. So well, I think we're getting to the end of this conversation. It's been so productive and so fun to talk to you.
always a pleasure.
Um, and I want you to tell us where we can follow you and stuff like that.
I'm available on all platforms as the real Chalto, except on YouTube. On YouTube, it's just Chalto. I just started making videos like little tips and tricks that I've learned throughout the years that I found interesting. So if you want to like learn some weird stuff, go and check it out.
Awesome. And I'm going to be posting all the links over here on the chat so you guys can have them. Um, if it's not very clear, I will be posting them in the description below. But for now, I see that you can actually access the YouTube there. So at least go and follow him on YouTube. He has many incredible tutorials coming up, and I want to make sure that you guys are the first ones to see it. And just to take advantage of this incredible opportunity so you can become a better producer yourself in no time.
Yep.
Awesome. So thank you so much. This has been so fun.
It was great. We have to do it more often.
Yes, of course. And we'll produce more soon, hopefully.
Awesome.
And thank you guys for joining us. Everybody who is on YouTube, thank you so much for being here. And for those who are going to watch the replay, you're in for a treat. So thanks so much. And we will see you on the next one. All right. Bye bye.